This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi everyone, Rusty back here at Meteo Mundo with your latest weather forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas for this early Thursday morning, November the 16th. There is obviously a lot to talk about. Yes, we do have two areas of still potential tropical development, but the extreme weather is going to be felt for a lot of the Bahamas and portions of the Caribbean with wind and rain, regardless of whether these become tropical systems or not. So because there's a lot to get into, we will do that right now. And as we get started on this forecast, thank you so much for liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Your support is appreciated and certainly needed as well. So let's get into what's happening, first of all, with our area in the Caribbean. We're going to get into what's happening in the Bahamas very shortly, but we do have a invest area now. I've been waiting for this for days and days and days, but if you notice that on this Thursday morning, we've really consolidated all of those broad area of showers and storms. It's much more condensed, and now this system is beginning to show a little signs of life. Again, there will be an Air Force reconnaissance aircraft that will be investigating this system. Now look, it's not going to get strong, okay? This was never about the high wind potential. We could still certainly get a tropical depression out of this. And because we do have an invest now, we do have our tropical models beginning to run. So when I show you those, and I'm going to take off the formation area because it's just simply easier to see, you're looking at the models all over the place. Again, because it's such a weak, ill-defined storm. But there is a core of our models which are running to the north and to the east, which is the consensus of the GFS and the European model and the NAM model. So you can see that these tracks here outlined, and let me even take off the satellite imagery so it's even easier to see, do take it somewhere near Jamaica as we go over the next couple of days. So again, just looking at the spaghetti plots, yes, some of them are haywire, but there is a cluster through Jamaica, the eastern tip of keeps the dirty eastern side of the storm with the heaviest moisture right over Haiti and the Dominican Republic. So that's kind of one of the newer pieces of information for you here. But again, regardless as to whether this gets a closed center of circulation, the big story is still about the amount of rain it is going to dump. We are going to have the potential for excessive flooding rains through portions of Jamaica, especially Haiti, portions of the Dominican Republic, maybe eastern Cuba, and some heavier rains for the Turks and the Caicos as well. So here's what I expect as we go through this Wednesday. As we go through this Thursday. It was a cloudy Wednesday. There were some downpours in Jamaica, but you can see those bright white clouds. Those are your really high cloud tops. That is the real deep tropical moisture that'll be moving in through the day. So I expect pretty overcast conditions and the rain just to go up through Jamaica throughout the day. There could be some heavier downpours and we could get some localized flooding. Now, your government has issued what they call a severe weather watch. It looks like that encompasses whatever kind of weather this is going to bring. It's obviously going to kick up sea conditions, especially on the southern coastline. But for my friends in Kingston and Portmore and Spanish Town and Mandeville and Negril and Montego Bay and Maypen and Port Antonio, everywhere across the island, you need to be checking in with your local officials for any updated statements regarding severe weather watches or anything else that they want to have you heed as all of this rain heads into your area throughout our Thursday and a good portion of our Friday as well. Again, this is a slow, meandering storm, which is why the rainfall totals could be so high. Now, it's going to get that way in the Dominican Republic and Haiti, especially on the western side of the island from Port-au-Prince west. Same thing for eastern Cuba as well. The rain will begin to fall apart a bit through Central America, but still down towards Panama. We could have some decent showers, but we're just all consolidating this into that area, which is trying to wrap up. So now it's that swath of heavier rain that I'm most concerned about. Let's take a look at that. We'll take a look at several of the models here. Going to start off with the GFS, and we'll put this into motion. And again, the wind has really come down on all the models, okay? The GFS says more than likely we'll get a tropical depression, but it's very low-end tropical storm at best. More than likely this is just going to be a tropical depression or even stay a disturbance, but just look at that moisture moving through. Now, there will be some wind gusts of 30, 35 miles an hour, which with saturated soil could cause a little bit of issues, especially some power problems. But I'm not too concerned about the wind. I am much more concerned about the rain. So starting this morning, The showers are already moving across portions of Jamaica. Just notice again that for today, it is mainly concentrated over Jamaica. That is just some really rich, deep tropical moisture, good downpours. Again, maybe a little bit heavier on the eastern side of the island, maybe overall a little bit more rain from Kingston east, but still McGrill and Montego Bay and the higher terrain areas, the western hillier areas, Westmoreland area could certainly still see some solid rainfall totals out of this, okay? Then as we get into our Friday, this all kind of shifts east. Still going to be some rain for Jamaica, but now the focus for Friday and into the weekend goes over towards Hispaniola, portions of Cuba, portions of the Turks and the Caicos. There'll be some heavier rain for Puerto Rico, but again, it's kind of accelerating in this time frame as we get into Saturday and Sunday. So I don't think it's going to sit over Puerto Rico long enough to cause any real big problems. That's something I'll monitor though for our friends in San Juan and even across the Virgin Islands as well. But again, not as concerned. This is the concern. We've got a very high terrain island in Hispaniola. We're going to have a lot of rain, and mudslide issues are going to be a big concern as this disturbance moves to the north and to the east. It's still very slow moving at this point in time and doesn't really begin to have some forward speed until it gets north of Hispaniola and then races quickly to the north and to the east. So let's take a look at the total precipitation, same time frame for you here. Again, for the remainder of this Thursday, we're mainly focusing on Jamaica. There'll be some showers in and around the Cayman Islands, but nothing extremely heavy. Then we start to see this swath of very heavy rain. And I gotta tell you, if there is just this great little thing, if we could just keep all of this really heavy rain just offshore of everyone, that would be amazing. Now, I don't know if that's going to end up being the case because you're threading such a thin needle there, but you can see that on the GFS model, there is extremely high rainfall totals right along and east of the center of circulation. Now, again, the model is going to show you a big disparity in the rain total. So when I zoom this out, it's now painting on over a foot of rain on the far eastern side of the island, maybe 8 to 9 inches of rain near Kingston, more like 4 in Mandeville, and then much lower amounts towards Montego Bay. Now, listen, do I buy that this is going to be the rainfall totals across the island? No, okay? I think it's going to be more in the 4 to 8 inch range with locally higher amounts. I don't think we're going to have, again, this huge disparity across this. The European model is much more aggressive with the rain, even on the western side of the island, and I'll show you that coming up. So I don't think that we're going to have 2 inches of rain on the western side and over a foot on the eastern. I think it's more in that middle range, 4 to 8, with locally higher amounts. That's something I'm going to closely monitor. And again, friends, if you live in Jamaica, drop it in the comments section below. Let me know what you're seeing. Would love to hear kind of those ground truth reports. Yes, Rusty, we've already seen some heavy rain, or no, we haven't gotten it yet. You know, getting that information from you is always vital. It's very important to us here in the Meteo Mundo community. Now into Hispaniola, again, it's going to be right on the western edge that we paint on the highest rainfall totals. It's slightly west of the last model run, but you're still looking at some potentially very high rainfall totals, especially on the southern coastline here. So maybe just south of Port-au-Prince there, we could get several 4 or 5 inches of rain. It's the same thing even on the Dominican Republic side near Santo Domingo. We could pick up a good 5 inches of rain in some areas. Again, we'll be monitoring that situation. It's trying to not bring as much rain to some of the higher terrain areas. That would be great news. But again, it's such a close shave. I don't really want to say, oh, hey, look, we're looking better, because the European model is so aggressive with the rainfall along this track, and I'll show you that coming up. But you get the idea that we could have some extensive rainfall totals. And then as we get into the Turks and the Caicos, this begins to accelerate. And although I do expect to see several inches of rain, especially, the far southwest side of the islands, it's going to move so quickly that we're not going to see extensive flooding concerns for the Turks and Caicos. Doesn't mean we couldn't have isolated flash flooding there. And again, for the rest of the Central America area, again, some pockets of heavier rain there, but overall, it's going to be along this path through Jamaica and Hispaniola with the best chance for the flooding rain threat. Looking at winds on the old GFS model again, you're going to see a system that never gets very strong. We could have some wind gusts here, and again, in that 35 to maybe 40 mile an hour range, maybe not sustained. So again, could support a tropical depression, maybe at the best a weak tropical storm, but it wouldn't shock me if we stay at a depression level. You do notice that the GFS model now is a little bit more right over Jamaica. So for my friends there, we'll take a look at some of the winds. Now the winds are going to be moving in mainly on Friday. Okay, so today it's more about the rain. Tomorrow it'll be a combination of the wind and the rain. And these are gusts, but you can see these gusts in and around the island here as this moves through. That could be right around 35 to 40 miles an hour. If I back this up just slightly here, you can see that some of those winds might go directly over the island. All right, so we'll be monitoring that for you. Maybe some 35, 40 mile an hour winds on your Friday, and then those winds move off towards the north and to the east. And again, whatever center of circulation still looks to be impacted by the higher terrain of Hispaniola. And then all of this quickly drives north and east. And we'll talk about the evolution of this because it also kind of goes along with what's happening in the Bahamas coming up in just a second. Several other models to look at. I want to go over to the NAM model. We're going to stay with the wind product here in the NAM model. I need to just reset the time frame for us real quickly here, and then we will get into that. Now, the NAM, again, is of a fairly similar design to the GFS. You're going to see a system that tries to strengthen a little bit right over Jamaica tomorrow, certainly bringing some gusty winds of 35 to 40, and then moving north into the east. Again, I mentioned at the top of the video, I think I did at least, the GFS, the NAM, and the European model are all in very good agreement overall with the evolution of this. Again, not being a huge wind threat, but the rain threat could be a big concern. And there it is on the NAM model. This looks very similar to the GFS, doesn't it? Where again, as you get into Friday and early Saturday, you're gonna have some winds of that 35, 40, maybe slightly higher range that could impact places like Kingston and Portmore, which is one reason why, again, there could be some issues, especially with the coastal waters in and around Jamaica for the next couple of days. And then this shoves off towards the east. Could see some gustier winds on the NAM model in portions of the Turks and the Caicos. You can see some of those winds and even some gusts on the northern side of Hispaniola, again at 35. This would be more indicative of a tropical depression more than anything else. Looking at the reflectivity, I'll clear that off. And again, same time frame in the NAM model. We can just kind of compare this to the GFS. It's a nice blob of rain right over the same areas that I just mentioned. Jamaica, the eastern tip of Cuba, the western side of Hispaniola, a few showers for the Cayman Islands, some pockets of heavier rain for the Turks and Caicos, some pockets of heavier rain for Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, but the extensive rain, again, over Hispaniola and portions of Jamaica. And it's the same time frame as far as the initiation. Again, this morning on the NAM model, beginning to move in, a very wet day across Jamaica on this Thursday through at least tomorrow afternoon or evening, but more than likely even parts of Saturday, and then finally pulling away after that. So that is a look at both the GFS and the NAM model with this system. We'll switch over to the European model in just a second, but I do want to show you that now we have an invest. We can look at the tracks here on the GFS model. The black is going to be your mean, basically your ensemble mean of all the different GFS members. And you notice that track is just east of Jamaica there, and then right in between the eastern tip of Cuba and Haiti. But if you look at some of the greens, some of them are on the western side of Jamaica, others even a little bit farther off towards the east. So not, decent agreement with this, but again, it's such a broad system, there's no reason to even focus on just that center of circulation. Now, as far as the intensity goes, the majority of the ensemble members of the GFS keep it as a tropical depression. There is your line for a tropical storm with winds of 39 miles an hour. These are knots, but you get the idea that it's going to be a little bit lower than that in general. Now, let's look at the European model as far as that pressure track. Going to let this loop again. This will take us out through the weekend. I want you to notice that you do not see much here on the European model. There'll be a blip or two of a closed low. So the European model is showing more than likely this staying a disturbance, potentially a weak tropical depression, but nothing in the way of any true solid core forms on the European model. It's a different story with the system in the Bahamas. We already have ourselves a low that is developed off of the Florida Keys and is moving through the Northwest Bahamas as we speak. And that low could deepen, and that's the one that's going to be the wind maker. So again, our system in the Caribbean, rainmaker. Our system up in the Bahamas, that one is going to be the wind maker. Speaking of the rain, look at the swath of rain on the European model right through Jamaica right here, eastern Cuba, and western Hispaniola. Again, the maximum on the map is over 20 inches of rain, and it is this area right here. So there is the opportunity, if you will, for more than a foot of rain to fall along the path, maybe even a foot and a half of rain. We just have to hope that this falls in the open waters just away from Jamaica, just to the west of Haiti. But we'll be monitoring that very, very closely. So that's why we do have that flooding threat for these areas, because, you know, we could pick up a quick 4 to 5 inches of rain per hour from time to time. It just really depends. And then overall, again, more than a foot and a half of rain in some spots. It's a possibility. We'll see how it plays out. But again, the rainfall is going to be so localized. Some areas will not get a lot, but others could get inundated in rain. And especially over Haiti, again, you're looking at the opportunity, unfortunately, for some flash flooding. Okay, let's talk about what's happening with our system just moving off of, if you will, the Florida Keys and into the Northwest Bahamas. So I got a few things on this map. I'm going to take a couple of them off. First of all, we'll get rid of that. This is the enhanced satellite imagery here, okay? And if you look right down about here, that's where you're going to see this low beginning to form. It has brought a tremendous amount of rain already to portions of South Florida and the Florida Keys. Marathon, Florida, which, if I zoom in, I'm not sure if we have the name. Oh, yeah, we do. Of course we do. There's Marathon. They had 6.5 inches of rain yesterday, okay? Broke their all-time daily record in November, at any point in time for November. So this is an extremely high rainfall and wind event for our friends in the northwest side of the Bahamas. Low levels of the atmosphere, ripped with moisture. Look at this blow up of moisture coming along with this area of low pressure. It is going to be wet. It is going to be extremely windy. There is a gale warning in effect for winds of 39 to 54 miles an hour or higher for the central and the northwest Bahamas. So let's get into what this is going to look like here for our friends in the Bahamas. We'll start off with this time with the HER model for us here. And give me just 1 second. I'm going to reset the time frame. We'll start with, you know what? Let's start with the wind gusts. Let's start with the wind gusts. I think that's important to talk about because the wind is going to be a huge concern for our Thursday. This low, as it moves offshore, is only going to be deepening. It's only going to be strengthening, and this wind field is going to get larger and stronger. And so we are going to be ripping winds across the central and the northwest side of the Bahamas. Now, you can really start to see it curlicue just to the north of Walker's Key, as thankfully it's moving away. But again, such a broad disturbance, these winds are going to be outrageous. Obviously, mariners should stay in port. That would be my advice. I wouldn't be trying to venture out in these waters when you're looking at these winds here. Tell you what, let's back up to today. Let me get back here. So we'll start basically with where we are right now with some winds that are pinging on the HER model in the 30, 40, close to 50 mile per hour range. And it's not just for Grand Bahama, it's all the way down towards Nassau and the central Bahamas as well. Again, large wind field, gale force conditions out there. This starts to wrap up through the day as it moves north. That should improve the winds a bit down towards Nassau and the central Bahamas, while keeping places like Abaco and Grand Bahama still under the gun throughout the afternoon hours. You can see on the HER model here, we're still pinging winds well in excess of 30 and 40 miles an hour. Same thing up towards Walker's Key. So I can't overstate the wind that especially the northwest Bahamas is going to see through the remainder of Thursday. Just look at that huge wind field here as we get into the evening hours and then beginning to pull away some. And there's the wrap up of that non-tropical low just off the east coast of Florida. Now, as we get into tomorrow, the winds will still be fresh. They'll begin to weaken a bit, especially down from Nassau south, but still a very breezy day out there where we could be seeing winds of over 20 to 30 miles an hour. So extreme wind event. That's why we have the gale warnings. Extreme rain event as well for some areas. I mean, it has been raining cats and dogs. This is such a moisture loaded area of low pressure here. So we've had some very heavy rain overnight into our Thursday morning. That will continue in some areas throughout the day on Thursday. We're not going to be completely done with the rain until deep into our Friday. So let's take a look at that. Again, starting off this morning, it's just raining. I mean, that's as simple as that. And these are some heavy downpours. Certainly some isolated flash flooding across the islands will come with this. And then, I mean, you talk about this wind-driven rain and 30 and 40 and 50 mile an hour winds. My goodness. I mean, again, you know these areas very well. If you live here, you know some of those low-lying areas and some of the areas that are prone to some issues when you combine this kind of wind and rain. But we're seeing a copious amount of rain here through Grand Bahama and Abaco and Andros down towards Nassau and Eleuthera and even the central Bahamas. And again, this is, not what's happening down in the Caribbean. This is our other area that we have to closely monitor. So as far as the rainfall totals go with this, they are extremely high again. Throw that into motion, just going to let it loop up here, then we'll pause it and take a look. And again, this is just over the next 48 hours. I want to be clear about that. Now, I don't expect a lot more rain after 48 hours, but again, this is the HRRR model, and it is very, very aggressive with high rainfall totals. Again, it's kind of area dependent. There's spots here and there, but if we're looking at averages, 4, 5, 6+ inches of rain, maybe locally higher through the Northwest Bahamas, Walker's Key 3, but it's really spotty, but it's heavy. I mean, so again, one area could get 8, 10 miles south or west or north, anywhere could get 2, but you get the idea that this is just such moisture laden air that the rainfall amounts could be exceptionally high throughout the central and the northwest side of the Bahamas. Again, that's the HRRR model. On the GFS, it is very similar as well. So if we single frame this out about 48 hours, and then take a look at this, again, you're still looking at rainfall totals on the GFS. There's 6 there. If it'll actually stay on for me, there we go. Towards Bimini, and Bimini so close to where it's been very heavily raining down in Miami. Seeing 10+ inches of rain is possible. There was already street flooding late Wednesday night in Miami. It's been rough there. There's Freeport, again, 4 to 5. You get the idea that these models are pretty similar with that swath of very heavy rain. So I just wanted to point that out. Okay, so let's go back to the winds. And I'm going to take this and we're going to extend it out in time here because I want to show you again the evolution of the two systems and what ends up happening. So let me clear off the rain here and let's loop this up and then let's get out to a much broader look. So we're looking at the wind gusts, and the reason why I'm just showing you guys this is eventually both of these systems are going to merge with a front. Now this low is developing off of a frontal boundary as it is. It's going to race north into the east, and eventually this gets sucked up into it as well. And so guess what's going to happen? We're going to get a lot of wind over Bermuda and the western portions of the Atlantic and maybe up the eastern seaboard of the United States as this becomes extratropical quickly north of Hispaniola, combines with this frontal boundary, and just brings a massive wind field through the western side of the Atlantic. Again, you can see this. I mean, it's very, very impressive what's going to be happening here as these go. So gale warnings will be up through the western Atlantic because of these two systems that'll be merging. Again, this is the 3rd week of November. We see this a lot. These mid-latitude cyclones, these cold fronts get off of the coastline, the east coast of the United States, moving through the Bahamas. Anything of a tropical nature becomes extratropical pretty quickly, but the wind threat with these ends up being absolutely astronomical as well. Okay, so let's look at a couple things real fast. First of all, the flooding threat is going to be the big story for Jamaica, Eastern Cuba, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic. And as we go through today and tomorrow, I'll probably start breaking out more of the estimated rainfall in those areas, but just know that the flooding threat exists for all those areas, and we'll talk more about specific totals coming up. I mentioned some of them already, but we'll get even in more detail as this system evolves and gets closer. The gale warning for the northwest and the central Bahamas, but still some very heavy rainfall there. I mean, obviously, small craft should remain in port. You guys might just want to buckle down for a couple of days here with the strong winds and the rain across the area. Don't buckle down watching us, though, friends. We got you covered here at Meteo Mundo. Again, in between these forecast updates, we are across social media. Again, we plan to be something that you've never seen before on the digital platform as far as weather forecasting. So find us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and email us, mymeteomundo@gmail.com. If you have pictures or you have some video you want to send us, you can do that to our email address or find us on Instagram. Maybe you have some video, my friends in Jamaica, some pictures, my friends in the Bahamas. Throw that into our Instagram account, and I'd love to show them to you right here on our YouTube channel. So again, friends, I will be back later today with a forecast update. We are live streaming our radar system. You can check that out in the live tab to get updates in between these videos. Again, thank you so much for liking this video. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. If you haven't, if you have a specific question about the forecast, all you got to do is drop it in the comments section below. I'd be happy to answer them for you as quickly as I possibly can. Have a great rest of your Thursday. I'll be back shortly with an update. We'll see you soon right here at Meteo Mundo.